So, ladies and gentlemen, now that the round of 32 is officially over and teams know who we are going to see in the round of 16, Barcelona now have a steady idea of who they could potentially be playing. It's one of two teams, Newcastle United or Paris Saint-Germain. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, guys. Welcome back to Omar Talks Football. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you guys the breakdown of the round of 16, specifically in Barcelona's perspective, because like I mentioned, we have an idea of who we're going to play. We're going to play one of two teams that we have already played in the Champions League. One we've already beaten and one that has already beaten us. So before we get started, guys, make sure you guys smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, all of the beautiful stuff. And also, guys, most importantly, guys, get in the comment section below. And please, guys, comment while watching this video who you guys would like to see in the round of 16, ladies and gentlemen. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is what I am giving you guys as an idea, guys. This is basically the format or idea of who could potentially play who in the round of 16. And specifically, guys, we're only focusing on Barcelona. As you can see, we are right here at the top. We are alongside Chelsea, guys. Both of these teams are either going to play either PSG or Newcastle United. And like I said, guys, we have played both of these teams in the Champions League this season. We actually opened up our Champions League tie in the Champions League this season against Newcastle United away, and we actually did the job over there. It was actually very, very close. Newcastle United gave it a right go, but in the end, we were the ones who were victorious in the end. We won the game by 2-1 goals by Marcus Rashford in that game. And then you look on the other side, PSG, we've already played PSG. We actually played PSG, if I'm not mistaken, in our first home game of the Champions League. It was against PSG, and we did lose. Unfortunately, we ended up losing the game 2-1. It was a very, very poor performance. And yeah, like I said, guys, both of these teams, obviously we played them really early in the Champions League. And, both teams, they had a lot of runs. They had a lot of games in the Champions League. And I'm going to give you guys a breakdown of who I personally will want to see or who is likely we are going to see. And I would like to first of all start with the defending champions. Obviously, that is Paris Saint-Germain. They did beat us, like I mentioned earlier this season. They beat us 2-1. Goals by, I think it might have been Hakimi and by who scored the goals. Don't quote me, guys, because, my memory is a little blurry. But yeah, they did beat us. It was a disappointing performance. But I will say this about PSG. PSG, if you look at their last 5 Champions League games, they have been dreadful. They have only won 1 out of their last 5 Champions League games. Yesterday, against Monaco at home, they nearly bottled it. They drew the game 2-2, but for most of that game, they were losing by a goal, right? And then, obviously, Monaco had a red card, which you could say very, very controversial red card, but they did get a red card, and that basically changed the game. PSG were able to come back and get the draw in the game in the end, with Monaco getting the late equalizer. But that has basically been the story of their Champions League so far this season, right? Their last 3 home games or last 2 home games they've drawn, right? They drew against Newcastle United on the final game of the Champions League, ironically, right? Which that draw ended up sinking them to the playoffs. And then before that, they lost to Sporting Lisbon, right? Away at Sporting Lisbon, and then drew away at the San Mamés at Athletic Club. And yeah, so far, like I mentioned, 5 games, only 1 win. And that only win, ironically, was against Monaco in the first leg, which they did win by 3-2. They are not in good form. This is the poorest that they have been. And on paper, right, as a Barca fan, you would say, we want to play the team that is currently not in the best form. Let's play the team that is struggling right now, right? Let's go give us the team that is, having a little bit of a rut, right? And that is what I should say. But we know that in the past few years, PSG have had Barcelona's number. Let's really be honest, right? We've had, I think for the past 5 years, we've only beaten PSG once, which was in 2024 on the Xavi away at the Parc des Princes, where we won the game 3-2, but ended up battling the second leg, right? Let's be real, right? PSG, they've really had our number in the past few games, but anything can happen. Really, anything can happen. And like I mentioned, they're very vulnerable right now. This is the right time to play them, right? Should be the right time. They're really leaking goals. Their defense is not really that good. Their offense is not actually firing like it was last season, right? They are not really doing a lot of job, and you can see that they do miss Donnarumma a lot, right? Because the current goalkeepers that they have there are not at anywhere the level of Donnarumma. So I'll be honest. I would fancy my chances, but I'm also very cautious. I'm not like a lot of Barca fans who are kind of, just saying, give us PSG, give us PSG. I feel like a lot of us, they're speaking out of emotion because they really want to get that revenge after they beat us earlier this season. But anything can happen. And even though they're not in good form, I am not overlooking them because they are the defending champions and we don't know. They could just turn up and be on fire in the round. So now, let's talk about another team that we can potentially play in the round of 16. A team that we have beaten in their home stadium this season at St. James's Park. That would be Newcastle United. Like I mentioned, we started our Champions League this season against Newcastle at St. James's Park. It was a very, very close game, right? Newcastle United really gave it a go. Jean Garcia had to play out of his skin, but most importantly, guys, we had to rely on guys like Rashford. Rashford scoring 2 amazing goals in that game and gave us the victory, winning the game by 2-1. And I would say this about Newcastle United. They, I would say, are the kind of the polar opposites of PSG, where they have actually been a very, very good streak in the Champions League this season. I think they haven't lost their last 5 games, right? I'm not certain, but I do know in the last 3 games, they've won 2 out of the last 3 games. At round of 32, they were given Karabakh FC, and they absolutely destroyed these guys, right? Especially at Baku, right? Absolutely doing the job there. Gordon scoring 4 out of 5 goals, right? They won the game 5-1, and when they came in the home game at St. James's, right, they didn't show that amount of firepower because the tie was basically over, but they still won the second leg by 3-2. So when you look at Newcastle, like I mentioned, they are the polar opposites of PSG. They are actually on form. And they are absolutely cooking, and you cannot under any circumstances underestimate teams like Newcastle, right? So I will say this. I do believe that this would be more of a problem, right? This is the funny thing about this draw, right? Both of the teams that we're playing right now, we have history against them. The team that's beaten us are the team that are looking really beatable in the round of 16. And the team that we did beat are the team that is looking harder to beat in the round of 16. And Newcastle United, right, for everything that I do say, like I mentioned, they gave it a right go. And for many Barca fans, they might be looking at that Newcastle game thinking, for safety or for more confidence, we would rather play Newcastle because we've proven that we can beat Newcastle United. We've proven we can get it done. But I disagree. I think at the end of the day, when you look at Barcelona's form in the Champions League in Europe, we're not exactly that impressive. Yes, we did make the round of 16, right? We did make top 8. But if you look at our last 5 games, we struggled, right? And a team like Newcastle United will make us suffer in the form that we're in. So I'll be very honest. I am not exactly, over the moon or trying to, be overconfident. Because truth be told, either of these teams, if we play either of these teams, they both have a realistic chance of knocking us out of the Champions League, right? Now, personally, who would I want to see? It's quite interesting because both of these teams are cooking. Both of these teams are impressive. Both of these teams are giving it a right go. And because they are giving it a right go, if I'm going to be honest, I think either team could realistically give us a game. But personally, for me, I will say this. I would rather, I guess in passionate reasons, I would rather play PSG because they have beaten us. And, at the end of the day, I do need to run the fade again, right? I do want that revenge against PSG, right? On a personal level, right? But realistically, Newcastle United, as good as they've been, I think that realistically we can go and beat Newcastle. Now, can we beat them in both games? Very unlikely. I don't think we will. I think that potentially we could even lose next time we go to St. James's Park if we do play them, right? So I'll be honest, I do believe that they can beat us, but I do believe that if we play them in the Camp Nou, we can get it done. But as far as PSG is concerned, I wouldn't mind PSG either, right? Because for personal reasons, I do want to beat them. And if I'm gonna be honest, realistically, this is the best time to play them. This is the best time to play them. They look very vulnerable. But then again, they've looked vulnerable before, and we've played them before, and they somehow beat us. So it is what it is. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Who would you rather see in the round of 16? And also, guys, if your team is in the round of 16 and you kind of have an idea of who you're going to play, guys, let me know in the comment section below. Like I mentioned, tomorrow is the Champions League draw, guys. Let me know who you guys want to see or which games are you looking forward to seeing in the round of 16. But big up to every single one of you guys. Smash the like button on your way out as usual. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, Fisca Barça, peace. Take care.